There is no joy in Mudville tonight. The investigation into the use of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball has been released, and many of the great players of the game have been implicated. The list of users is long, many all-stars, many most valuable players. Among those named today, Roger Clemens, Andy Pettitte, Jason Giambi, Gary Sheffield, Miguel Tejada, and the man everyone has wondered about, Barry Bonds. The man who led the investigation calls this the steroid era. And ABC's John Berman is here. John?
Charlie, this is the report right here. It's some 20 months in the making, 310 pages with documentation like canceled checks. It outlines how players cheated, teams profited, the union dodged, and the league looked the other way. And some of the names in here are breathtaking. The greatest hitter of a generation, the greatest pitcher of a generation, a searing indictment of a generation.
Everyone involved in baseball over the past 2 decades, commissioners, club officials, the Players Association, the players, shares to some extent in the responsibility.
77 players are listed in all, many big names, including all-time home run king Barry Bonds, who faces federal perjury charges for lying about steroids. 6 other most valuable players, including Miguel Tejada and Jason Giambi, popular all-stars Dave Justice and Lenny Dykstra. But the biggest, most surprising bombshell is Roger Clemens, who has won more games than any pitcher alive. A former trainer, Brian McNamee, fingered both Clemens and Yankees teammate Andy Pettitte. The report says in 1998, Clemens asked McNamee to inject him with Winstrol, a powerful steroid. McNamee injected Clemens approximately 4 times in the buttocks over a several-week period. The use continued for years.
They're cheaters. I thought Roger Clemens was all about the work ethic, but it's really all about the steroids.
The report says all 30 ball clubs had players using steroids and other drugs, but teams in the league were late to push for testing.
I wasn't going to go through every shoebox in my clubhouse, see what they were doing, and clean it up.
The report does make several recommendations, including greater education for players and year-round testing by an independent lab. But the most important recommendation, Mitchell says, no punishment.
I urge the commissioner to forego imposing discipline on players for past violations of baseball's rules on performance-enhancing substances, including the players named in this report.
Commissioner Bud Selig said he will make no such promises.
I will take action when I believe it's appropriate.
The head of the Players Union tonight said that he thinks the existing testing program works and that players' reputations have been damaged irreparably. And a lawyer for Roger Clemens says he denies all the allegations in the report, Charlie, and that said that Roger Clemens is being slandered.
It is interesting whether the Baseball Players Union will accept the recommendations for tougher testing and more expensive testing that Mitchell made. The head of the union obviously indicated it's a very open question, and Senator Mitchell said they ought to accept them for the good of the game. John Berman reporting. Thanks. Well, I asked Senator Mitchell today if, as I said, he thought the players would accept the recommendations. He said they should. I also spoke with him about a significant aspect of his report, the effect of widespread drug use on young people. You talked about kids. And we have reported in this broadcast that federal investigators have come up with literally thousands of names of young people who are buying these things. To what extent is baseball and the example it sets responsible for that?
It's not just baseball, of course, Charlie. Kids aren't just baseball fans, they're sports fans. It's every sport in which young people look up to prominent athletes. And one of the most shocking aspects of this entire investigation to me was to learn that hundreds of thousands of our children, American youngsters, are using steroids, placing themselves at great risk. And it must be emphasized that the effect of steroids on youngsters can be much greater than that on adults because they are already going through serious hormonal changes in their life. The most important thing you can do is to try to figure out how to reduce those numbers, how to stop that from happening. And that's what I've tried to do in this report.
Former Senator George Mitchell, who led the investigation into the use of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball.